1 million is still attainable, I think, for the US, but it is going to be very expensive simply because of the MicroStrategy Bitcoin reactor consuming so much Bitcoin fuel in the next few months with their deployment of $42 billion. So it remains to be seen at which price the US will buy at and what their average cost will be. But I just know that things are definitely heating up, and it seems like it will happen because it has to happen. Does Bitcoin prolong the life of the dollar, or does it kill it? I think it can prolong the life of the dollar a little bit, but ultimately all fiat currencies will fail. And
Samson Mow sees a revolutionary future for Bitcoin and has set an ambitious target of $1 million by 2025. He highlights that a number of significant turning points are necessary for this journey to occur, beginning with Bitcoin surpassing the $100,000 threshold, a psychological barrier that might reshape its growth trajectory. According to Mow, Bitcoin's price swings will quicken after this barrier is crossed, going from small $1,000 gains to huge $10,000 or even $100,000 spikes in a single day. This phenomena, which is frequently called the God candle, signals the start of a new era in which Bitcoin's full potential as a worldwide asset becomes apparent. This exponential increase, according to Mow, is the result of growing institutional acceptance, demand driven by ETFs, and global recognition of Bitcoin's power to fight inflation and monetary instability. As hyperbitcoinization approaches, the $100,000 milestone may mark the beginning of Bitcoin's widespread adoption and unstoppable rise. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for daily insights. Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your take. Thank you and enjoy the video.
100,000 or 0.1 M, it's sort of a psychological barrier, much in the same way as 10,000 was a barrier, and 1,000 was a barrier, and 100 was a barrier. So I think once we pass 100,000, it's just smooth sailing up to 1 million. And it shows that Bitcoin has that growth potential. So once you cross that threshold into the 100,000 range, I think it's going to first accelerate. So Bitcoin's growth trajectory is not going to be, growing at 1,000 every couple of days or dropping by 1,000, but it'll start to go up by 10,000 a day or drop by 10,000 a day. And this is the God candle. And after that, we'll start to see Omega candles, which are 100,000 increments daily. So post 100K, that's when things start to heat up and it starts to accelerate. You're further along that steep exponential growth curve. I think 2025 is going to be the year of the Omega candle and the year of 1 million Bitcoin. The definition, hyperbitcoinization, is a parallel of sorts to hyperinflation. It's the point at which we no longer need to convert Bitcoin back to fiat currencies like the dollar or yen, simply because there's no need to. Everyone is using Bitcoin, and most importantly, everyone only wants Bitcoin. So with money, it's typically a zero-sum game. You don't really want an inferior money unless there's a direct need for it. But generally, people want to keep their savings or store value, if they're using fiat currencies, in the strongest vehicle of fiat currencies, which typically right now is the US dollar. But hyperbitcoinization will just be the point at which Bitcoin replaces the dollar, and nobody wants to take the dollar anymore. They want sats for payment.
And why do you think are we so close to that sort of scenario?
Well, there's a number of factors. The current legacy system is failing. If you look at the fracturing of solidarity of the US dollar, you can see the BRICS countries are starting to migrate away. More trade is being done with the Chinese yuan. And most importantly, you can see the US debt is spiraling out of control. We are at $36 trillion right now. Back when your grandparents were, going out to party, they were paying 15 cents for a hamburger. But now you're $36 trillion in debt. So there's a very big problem right now, and most people don't recognize the scale of that problem, but that debt is unlikely to be paid off. Even with Doge or Department of Government Efficiency, there's only so much you can do to trim the fat and to optimize and cost cut. But I think ultimately it's not going to have much effect because the spending is still there, and more importantly, the interest on that debt is compounding. And interest is a miracle. It's a miracle if you're, in the black, but it's the opposite of a miracle, or it's a big curse when you're in the red. Well, the biggest thing that MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor is doing is that they are creating demand for Bitcoin. So I view the ETFs as a legitimization of Bitcoin as an asset class. And they are also a major source of demand. Demand for Bitcoin from the ETFs alone is multiples each day of supply. But MicroStrategy sort of adds gasoline on that fire by creating this Bitcoin reactor, which they can take corporate debt and corporate equity and convert that to Bitcoin, price at a much higher multiple in the future, and effectively pay zero interest rate for that. So they're sort of an accelerant on this fire that's already burning for Bitcoin. The nation state path is also going to follow the same model, both as a reserve asset, but also as a MicroStrategy type play. And I view the Bitcoin bonds that I helped to architect as this sort of MicroStrategy play for nation states. And we do see more and more interest coming back to Bitcoin bonds because it makes perfect sense to issue sovereign debt, which is superior in many ways to corporate debt, to acquire Bitcoin for a strategic reserve or to build a mining operation. Right now, I would say the nation-state Bitcoin developments are very much centered on the US, especially with the election of Trump once again, and the talk of creation of this Bitcoin strategic reserve in the US.
When it comes to Bitcoin, the US is at a crucial crossroads. On the one hand, the dollar's dominance might be momentarily strengthened by embracing Bitcoin and creating a strategic reserve. On the other hand, fiat currencies, such as the dollar, are probably going to become less important as Bitcoin adoption picks up speed globally. According to Samson Mow, the global financial environment will change as a result of Bitcoin's eventual transition to the hardest form of money, even though it may extend the dollar's dominance for a few more years. It is obvious that the United States must respond immediately. Delaying a Bitcoin reserve plan will not only raise purchase prices, but also reduce the nation's geopolitical power due to growing demand from ETFs, firms, and other countries. While waiting could leave the United States unable to keep up in a future dominated by Bitcoin, acting now could put the country in a position to lead this financial revolution. But that's not all. Let's get back and hear what he has to say.
I think this is a catalyst for more change and more adoption of Bitcoin around the world, simply because most people are looking to follow somebody. They don't really want to be the first. El Salvador was the first nation state to really adopt Bitcoin in a meaningful way. But I think it's a small country and they're not being looked at as the meter stick to measure and to decide what to do. Much in the same way as the ETFs. So the ETFs, the US kind of led the way there. Everyone was waiting for approval in the US before they greenlit their own ETFs. And you saw that with the US ETFs coming online and then the Hong Kong ones and then the Australian ones. They're very much watching and waiting. And I think it's the same for meaningful Bitcoin adoption, such as creation of a Bitcoin strategic reserve. But there's already talk at the state level of a few states trying to create it before it's created at the federal level. And I believe this is also prompting more countries around the world to start really sitting down and trying to break down what they need to do and put together a plan. Decently well defined, I think, in the bill, but at a high level, they committed to stop selling any seized Bitcoin that they have, and there is a plan to purchase. Now, the details of that purchase execution is not really set, but I think that is not something that can be decided until once the bill has really been passed. And the timeline has also been more or less outlined. They want to create a reserve of 1 million Bitcoin. I think Bobby Kennedy was talking about 4 million Bitcoin, but 1 million is still attainable, I think, for the US. But it is going to be very expensive simply because of the MicroStrategy Bitcoin reactor consuming so much Bitcoin fuel in the next few months with their deployment of $42 billion. So it remains to be seen at which price the US will buy at and what their average cost will be. But I just know that things are definitely heating up, and it seems like it will happen because it has to happen. Well, I'm hopeful that it will be passed in the first 100 days because it is a very critical piece of legislation, and it is time is of the essence, simply because as more countries decide to front run the US, then you compound that with ETF demand, and you compound that with MicroStrategy demand and other corporations. And it just becomes very likely that the price is going to be very expensive if they wait too long. So I definitely think it's better sooner than later. Does Bitcoin prolong the life of the dollar, or does it kill it? I think it can prolong the life of the dollar a little bit, but ultimately all fiat currencies will fail. And this is just because we will gravitate as a civilization to the hardest form of money and the best form of money. So yes, adoption of Bitcoin and building a strategic Bitcoin reserve does strengthen the position short term of the US and by extension the US dollar. But long term, it doesn't really matter. It's just maybe prolonging the life of the dollar for another 5 years, maybe. But as the world moves to a Bitcoin standard, you simply just don't want a fiat currency. Just like today, if I offered you payment for something in seashells, you'd be like, no, I'll take some fiat currency. You don't want the seashells as money. Maybe to decorate your room, but not to store value in, for sure.
Samson Mow emphasizes how urgent it is for the U.S. to embrace Bitcoin and create a strategic reserve. According to a recent legislative proposal, the sale of Bitcoin that has been confiscated should be stopped and a reserve of 1 million Bitcoin should be established. The details of how and when this will occur are yet unknown, but Samson stresses that given the increasing demand from companies like MicroStrategy, ETFs, and other countries competing for Bitcoin, delays might make this transition much more costly. He also discusses how the acceptance of Bitcoin might affect the value of the dollar. Adopting Bitcoin and accumulating reserves could prolong the dollar's dominance in the near future. However, Samson contends that as humanity naturally shifts to Bitcoin, the most robust and effective form of money, fiat currencies such as the dollar will eventually become obsolete. Even if this shift is unavoidable, it emphasizes how crucial it is that the United States move swiftly to prevent falling behind. Samson uses an analogy to highlight this change. Fiat currencies may soon lose value as people turn to Bitcoin because of its unparalleled capacity to hold and maintain value. Much like seashells are no longer useful as money in today's economy. Time is running out as the competition to adopt Bitcoin heats up. Will the US take swift action to guarantee its place in the upcoming Bitcoin era, or will hesitation cost it dearly in the global financial landscape? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this discussion insightful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more updates on Bitcoin and the future of money.